Hello. Today we're going to look at the book of Job, and we're going to do it in a little different way with a cooking lesson. So I hope you enjoy it, and most of all, I hope you learn a real important truth. Now, in the book of Job, it talks about all of his riches. Job was one of the greatest men in the whole area. He had 7,000 sheep. Imagine that. He was so rich with 7,000 sheep. He had 3,000 camels, 500 yokes of oxen, and 500 donkeys. Now, so we're using sugar to represent how wealthy he was. Very, very rich. Now, what made him even richer was he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. Kids are wonderful, and they're great treasures. We're going to put in some butter. And butter is what holds cookies together and keeps them from falling apart. But what we want to talk about is that the butter represents Job's relationship with God. Job loved God with all of his heart. And just like butter keeps cookies from falling apart, our relationship with God is what keeps our life from falling apart. So let's not forget that. It's the relationship with God that kept Job's life from falling apart. We don't want too much butter in there. So, in one day, his entire life started to change. The Bible tells us that a servant came running to him and said, Job, Job, the Chaldeans have come, and the Chaldeans have stolen away your 3,000 camels. So we're going to have flour represent those camels that were stolen. It would be a drag to lose your camels, but flour's just kind of there, not a real strong feeling. It wouldn't be a huge loss. But as soon as that servant had come and told him that the camels had disappeared, then another servant came running and said, the Sabians have come, and the Sabians have stolen your 500 yoke of oxen and your 500 donkeys. We're going to use baking soda to represent that because baking soda makes things rise up and be worse. So he's already lost his camels, his donkeys, and his oxen. Then as soon as that servant was done, another servant came running and said, Job, Job, fire fell from heaven. And the fire that fell from heaven killed all of your sheep. Job, this fire fell from heaven, and all of your sheep have been killed, and I alone have escaped to tell you. His life was so churned up. But you know, God had given Satan permission to test Job. And so his life was being so churned up. And the worst thing that happened was he lost his children. We're going to use bitter chocolate to represent that. If you have some bitter chocolate in your house, ask your mom if you can taste it. It is terrible tasting. And to lose your children would be the worst thing in the world. All of a sudden the wind started blowing, and the wind blew on the house where his children were gathered, and that wind caused the house to crush down, and his 7 children were killed in that moment, his 7 sons and his 3 daughters. But remember, it was Job's relationship with God that kept him from being destroyed. Just like butter holds cookies together or brownies together, our relationship with God is what holds our life together. You know, even his friends gathered around, and his friends were mocking him, and his friends were saying, just curse God. Just tell God you quit. And his wife said, Job, curse God, curse God. If you'll just curse God, then your life will be better. But Job said, no, my relationship with God is what's most important. That's what holds my life together. So if you put salt in with a wound, if you have a cut and you get salt in your wound, well, it really burns. So Job's heart was already hurting, but then God allowed Satan to afflict his body. and he got terrible boils all over his body. All over his body there were boils. And so he hurt physically, and his heart was hurt. But you know what Job said? Naked came I into this world, and naked will I return. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And then he said, I know that my Redeemer lives. His life was all churned up. Seemed like everything was being destroyed. But you know what? Romans 8:28 says that when God is the center of our life, when we love him, then he causes all things to work together for those who love the Lord and those who are called according to his purpose. And that's exactly what happened with Job. God took all of those disasters and he turned them into something beautiful, like a plate full of brownies. God turned and he gave Job, instead of 7,000 sheep, he gave him 14,000. Instead of 3,000 camels, he gave him 6,000 camels. Instead of 500 donkeys, he gave him 1,000. And instead of 500 yoke of oxen, he gave him 1,000 yoke of oxen. And he gave him 7 new sons and 3 new daughters. So when life feels all churned up and like nothing but bad is happening, we can trust the Lord. If he is first in our life, he holds us together and he causes good things to come. And so we can trust him. Amen.